Welcome to Echoes of Faith, where stories of hope, grace, and redemption come to life. Each story is a journey of faith, a testament to the power of God's love, and a reminder that no one is ever too far from His grace. In this episode of Echoes of Faith, Francine discovers that the quietest season of her life is where God whispers the loudest. With her faithful cat, Whiskers, by her side, she prays. And slowly, gently, healing begins to unfold. Not all at once, but in soft, spirit-led steps. A tender reminder that even in silence, God is still moving. The evening light slanted softly through the lace curtains as Francine lowered herself to her knees beside the old floral armchair. The quiet hum of the ceiling fan stirred the still air, but her heart was stiller yet. As always, Whiskers was there first, his soft gray fur curled neatly at her side, eyes half closed, purring like a whispered amen. "Lord," Francine began, her voice low, "you have been so good to me. You've carried me through seasons I never thought I could bear." Her hands folded gently, the gold band still encircling her ring finger, a symbol of the life she'd shared with Walter for nearly 4 decades before the Lord called him home. The house had grown too quiet since his passing. The well-worn grooves in the hardwood no longer echoed with his familiar footsteps, nor did the kitchen ring with his cheerful humming. But even in the quiet, she felt the Lord's presence and Whiskers' soft, steadfast company. Yet tonight, as she prayed, there was an ache beneath her gratitude. "You know my heart, Lord. I'm not ungrateful. The children call when they can. Bless them, they have their own busy lives. The ladies from church stop by now and again, and I'm thankful. But sometimes," her voice trembled slightly, "sometimes the house feels too big and the days too long." Whiskers shifted closer, pressing his warm body against her leg as if to reassure her. Francine smiled softly, wiping a tear. "Even now, you remind me I'm never truly alone." The next morning, as Francine tended her little front porch garden, she heard the familiar crunch of footsteps on gravel. "Good morning, Francine," came a gentle voice. She looked up to see Harrison, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners as he carried a small basket filled with fresh green beans and plump tomatoes. "Well, good morning, Harrison," she replied warmly. "You're spoiling me again, I see." He chuckled. "My garden's been generous this year. Figured you might like a few extras." They chatted about the unpredictable weather. Francine felt a peaceful ease settle between them. Harrison had been part of her church family for years, a steady, quiet presence after his own loss. They had exchanged pleasantries before, but lately his visits had grown a bit more frequent, though never intrusive. It wasn't just Harrison who had begun to appear more often. Last week, her eldest daughter had called, not once, but twice in the same day. "Just to check in," she'd said. Her grandson proudly sent her a photo of his science project. Even sweet Mrs. Donnelly from next door had knocked with a fresh loaf of banana bread. The Lord was answering her prayers, not with a grand gesture, but with a patchwork of small, beautiful mercies. One evening, after church Bible study, Harrison offered to walk Francine home. The night air was cool but pleasant. She couldn't help but smile to see Whiskers waiting for her by the door, tail swishing in lazy circles. "Looks like someone's been waiting up for you," Harrison said with a smile. "He always does," Francine replied fondly. "He's also quite the prayer partner." They laughed softly. The conversation was easy, unforced, full of quiet understanding that only comes from shared seasons of life. Later, as the house settled into nighttime stillness, Francine knelt once more beside her chair, Whiskers curling at her feet. She closed her eyes and whispered into the silence. "Lord, I see what you're doing, and I trust your timing. Thank you for reminding me that your answers often come gently, like whispered prayers." The next morning, Francine moved quietly around the kitchen. The kettle whistled, and she reached for 2 teacups out of habit, then softly slid one back into the cupboard. Old habits. The phone rang, breaking the hush. It was Farah, her eldest. "Hi, Mama," Farah's voice sang cheerfully through the receiver. "Just checking in." They chatted for a while, updates on the grandkids, weather, and church happenings. As they spoke, Whiskers hopped onto Francine's lap, purring softly, as though adding his own approval to Farah's encouragement. After a pause, Farah gently ventured, "Mama, have you thought about maybe getting out more?" Francine chuckled. "Oh, honey, at my age?" "Yes, at your age," Farah replied with mock sternness. "Daddy would want you to enjoy life, not just sit in that house with Whiskers." Francine smiled. She glanced at the cat. "I'm fine, really. Whiskers is great company." "I know you're fine, Mama, but maybe it's time to let the Lord bring something or someone new into your life." After they said their goodbyes, Francine stood for a moment, pondering her daughter's words. Later that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. 3 of the church ladies, Ava, Margie, and Doris, stood on her porch, their smiles as warm as the sunshine behind them. "We were just making the rounds," Ava said, "checking on folks and spreading the word about the Summer Youth Fellowship kickoff." Margie chimed in. "We're organizing a big meal for the teens, trying to give them a good start to the summer." Doris grinned. "And Francine, you know nobody fries chicken like you do." Francine laughed, shaking her head. "You ladies are shameless." "Just spirit-led," Margie teased. "We're praying you'll say yes." Francine hesitated for a moment, then heard Farah's voice echoing softly in her heart. "Maybe it's time to get out there." "Harrison will be there," Ava added playfully. The ladies laughed. For the first time in a long time, Francine felt her cheeks flush. "All right," she said with a smile. "I'll do it." Cheers erupted from the trio, and Francine couldn't help but feel a little spark inside, a spark she hadn't felt in a while. A few days later, as Francine sorted through her shopping list for the event, she heard footsteps on the gravel walkway. Looking up, she saw Harrison approaching, carrying a small basket brimming with green beans, tomatoes, and cucumbers. "Good morning, Francine," he said with a gentle smile. "I heard you're cooking for the youth event. Thought you might be able to use some of these?" "Well, aren't you thoughtful?" Francine replied, pleasantly surprised. "These will pair nicely with the fried chicken." Harrison chuckled. "I know about your fried chicken. It has quite the reputation." They both laughed, and for a moment, the conversation lingered comfortably between them. "Your garden is lovely this year," Francine added, desperate for something to say. "It keeps me busy," Harrison said, his tone softening slightly. "My late wife used to say it was therapy. She was right." Francine nodded, understanding the unspoken weight in his words. "Walter used to say my cooking was therapy too." A shared silence passed between them, not heavy, but tender. "Well," Harrison said after a moment, "if you need more vegetables, just let me know. I'd be happy to help." "Thank you, Harrison," Francine said warmly. "I just might take you up on that." In the days leading up to the event, Harrison stopped by a few more times, always with a basket of fresh produce and a kind word. Their conversations grew longer, their laughter easier. Slowly, without fanfare, a quiet friendship blossomed. On the day of the Summer Youth Fellowship kickoff, the church was alive with energy. Teens played games on the lawn, while parents and church members mingled under the picnic pavilion. Francine stood by the serving tables, dishing out plates of her famous fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and Harrison's fresh green beans. "You outdid yourself, Francine," Pastor Jenkins said as he came through the line for seconds. "This is a blessing." Watching the laughter of the teenagers and feeling the warmth of the fellowship, Francine felt something she hadn't in a long time. Purpose, joy, a quiet sense that God was indeed still using her. The rest of the summer days slipped by, and soon, sitting on the porch with Harrison became part of Francine's quiet rhythm. They would sip coffee, watch the robins, and share memories, sometimes of their late spouses, sometimes of their grandchildren, sometimes simply of life. On this particular morning, Whiskers lay stretched between them, his purring blending with the gentle breeze. Harrison reached over to refill Francine's cup. "You know, Francine," he said softly, "I've come to look forward to these little visits more than I ever expected." She smiled, her heart warm. "So have I, Harrison. So have I." And for the first time in many years, Francine felt a stirring, soft and steady, as if her heart was opening again, just as the Lord intended. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Echoes of Faith. If Whiskers and whispered prayers touched your heart, we invite you to share it with someone who may be waiting on God in the quiet. Sometimes His most beautiful answers arrive not with fanfare, but with faith. Until the next episode, may His peace settle gently over your soul.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, no matter what fires we face, faith will always carry us through. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to leave a comment. Subscribe for more stories that inspire and uplift. This is Echoes of Faith, where every story brings hope. If today's story moved you, be sure to discover more heartfelt journeys in the Echoes of Faith series and uplift your spirit. Don't miss out on the next chapter. There's always more to uncover.